So I don't know how many of you's got this letter through the post today. I was going to sit and record a step-by-step guide to what I think is wrong with the terms of reference consultation and what needs to be in the terms of reference. But many of you have received this letter today. Pictures coming up now. It's got a couple of leading elements in it that have me somewhat concerned. Let's just have a good look at it. Once we get through all the blah de blah blah bits, we come to this page here, picture again, and it asks three of the primary questions that the inquiry has asked us all to respond to. Do you agree with the provisional view of what should be covered? Please provide any additional views and information you think the inquiry should consider. So what is the provisional view? We don't really have one. A number of us campaigners have got fair ideas about what was wrong about the past. There's a number of submissions that have come in that I've backed myself, the one from Haemophilia Scotland, stuff from Haemophilia Wales, UK, those of you that are being represented by Collins, etc. It's not a very good question though, is it? Because it asks us to stand from a position that's unclear and slightly divisive, although a lot less divisive than people seem to think. Question 3. Is there any type of evidence, such as documents, communications or expert reports, that you think is essential to the inquiry to obtain? Now that's going to come in two formats. First of all, some of you are sitting on documents that directly prove things like the bullet case, where medical notes were altered and resulted in people's deaths. Those of you who are sitting on notes that you have proof have been edited or have been falsely misrepresented, you're going to have evidence on a personal nature on that. As far as the expert reports goes, you have to have read some stuff. I have some very particular views on that. And again, I'm not willing to voice them at this moment in time because I'm going to have a word with a couple of lawyers first, because I want to know how to get this nailed down properly. But as I say, on an individual basis, one of these sets of documents is going to be individuals' notes where you can directly prove that people were misrepresented medically. A number of you are sitting on documents. I would strongly recommend that if you do hand over documents to the inquiry, that you do so through your legal representation, and that for safety's sake you keep copies of each one. It's going to cost you a fortune down the copy shop, or it's going to take you forever on the scanning machine. I highly recommend you take that time and do it. Now the question 4 is the one that's really actually got me pretty much pissed off. Should the terms of reference include to consider the care provided and the response of governments across the United Kingdom and overseas? If so, what particular areas should it focus on? How long is a piece of string? Really? I mean, how long is a piece of string? Right. First of all, it's a question you can't really answer without understanding how far back this goes. We need to get to the right start points before we can actually answer this question. So beyond that, we also then have to look at the practices in other countries. I mean, for non-haemophiliacs it would be very interesting to look at the hospitals that would have then been in West Germany and how surrogate marking testing for hepatitis C actually affected their hep C rates in their donor and therefore recipient population. I'm sure their figures would be quite revealing. We asked for them in Penrose, he wasn't interested. The differing responses as well, we're also looking at the way that we've all been used against each other. So I want you to think long and hard about how these different responses have actually helped set us up into these separate little groups, these disparate groups of people who ended up fighting so much with each other. That was kind of the point the civil service deliberately helped stoke it. We should be quite significantly pissed off about it, and we should talk about it within the inquiry. The role that the civil service played in creating that systemic abuse by those insignificant responses, and I mean insignificant responses to the harm that had been caused, and relying heavily on the desperate, needs to be part of this inquiry. The last thing I'm going to say is actually on time frame at this moment. The plasma programme and the birth of blood transfusion as we know it today started during World War II and was originally run by the Red Cross. There's two primary factories in relation to haemophilia and to everybody else I would like to particularly look at from 1943 onwards, and that's the one at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary and also the one in Oxford. Now those factories produced products for our soldiers at the front and for use in hospitals thereafter. We start with freeze-dried plasma and we move on to other pooled products as they progress. So this is where my argument about hepatitis not being a surprise in haemophilia comes in. This is why Judith Poole, when she announced the discovery of cryoprecipitate, immediately warned about the risk of hepatitis. The knowledge that the more donors you used, the quality of donors you used, dates back to that 1940 period during World War II. As a result, it means that some of the data that we require isn't going to be sitting in the Department of Health, isn't even going to be sitting in the Cabinet Office. It might still be top secret because it's going to be sitting in the Department of Defence, as is the Department of War as was. It also means that the military end of Portman Down has probably got data that we're going to require, so searching Portman Down as a public health, public side is going to be insufficient. I want to tell everybody to avoid rushing to respond to these things. Take your time. You've got your own individual stories to tell. There's people out there like myself and groups that have more experience, and certainly I won't be responding until I've gone through a lawyer and got the language tied down properly to deal with the more complicated stuff. What I think is here is a need for you to spend a lot of time thinking about what you're going to write. If the boxes are too small, I strongly recommend that you put at the bottom, see addendum, mark each 1, 1, 2 and 3 and add an extra sheet of paper for each bit. I can't see enough room for me certainly to write everything I need to write within the space that's provided, even though I'm going to have to ask the wife to do it because I can barely write anymore. Mistake my hands around. Don't be rushed, guys. Right? Don't let this hurry you up. Yes, we should be looking at whether or not we want people. There's the bit. It asks us whether or not we think that people should be pursued on this. Of course they bloody should. Living and dead. But let's not be led into this. Let's not be pushed. Penrose, this point, we got rushed. We got really rushed. And it did us no good whatsoever because we didn't have time to breathe. And because we knew that some groups would move and other groups wouldn't, we lacked the coherence to actually force better terms of reference. So my plea to you all is please hold fire. Please attend any group meetings within your own groups, outside your own groups if invited. Please talk to everybody online, and the more coherent we can be the better. We certainly need to start in 1943 to show that there's a pattern of knowledge about risk, impact and fatality that goes back further than any haemophilia management. We certainly need to show that haemophiliacs were marked for hepatitis research from about 63 onwards at the very latest. And then we need to look at the fact that no bugger published. So we're going to need things done like a full search of all literature to see what was actually being published, when it was being published, and how openly it was being published in relation to hepatitis risks and long-term outcomes. Over the years I have searched many libraries and found very little. There's not much more to say today other than I intend to literally sit with a form, go through it bit by bit, make similar and general comments without swearing this time. Can't guarantee the next video won't be angry. This is quite a low blow. I think it's an attempt to try and push people forward, and I think everybody quite rightly is holding fire and taking their time over what is our last real shot at getting to some kind of lasting truth on this. Don't be pushed, guys. We've got until 23rd of next month before we have to actually go. There's a bit of March left. Give yourself a few weeks, write out your drafts, speak to your legal advisors, speak to your groups, be as coherent as you possibly can. If we all ask for the same thing, it becomes harder to deny. The more that we work together and in concert, the greater the chances are that we're going to get somewhere. If we don't, the greater the chances are we'll be used against each other, as we always have been. And it'd be nice to stop that. Thank you for listening again. As I say, from now on we will be intermittent posts on what I think people need to look at in the terms of reference. I will publish my final terms of reference input. I'm hoping what it will say very simply is that I broadly support Haemophilia Scotland, Haemophilia Wales, Haemophilia UK, and probably the Collins position as well, with maybe one or two little exceptions. I want to see as much coherence as possible. Coherence and adherence together, sticking together, is going to be the bit that makes the difference now. We have to all make sense. It's no more the rabble. The rabble worked well. Now it's got to be us going forward in concert as a strong group, thinking about each other and how the evidence reflects. We need to follow the paper trails now. We need to follow what's there. Thanks for listening again.